hope and really help all of humanity find their infinite goodness.
Now, in light, I know, Leah, this is getting Gnostic thought.
Let me ask you a question, though. From your interview with Zion, so Zion Lex ain't on no black power, he ain't on the race stuff?
He didn't sound like it to me.
The white Jew?
He didn't sound like it to me, but he just, in the debate, he talks about they're not those people who are digging holes in Brooklyn.
So you think it got, what's the word I'm looking for? You think it got you think because Vocab White, he put his black power hat on, which he wouldn't normally do?
I'm wondering if that was the case. I'm wondering if he playing to the audience. He's on Sinetta Black Power, all the stuff that's been going on. You know, they believe that Jews were heavily involved. Well, I'm assuming they believe that Jews were heavily involved with the slave trade, all that kind of stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's a level you got to put that black power on going on Sinetta in general. But from the interview, it didn't seem like, to me, I thought he would just accept the converts and those who keep the law. A more halakhic understanding.
Yeah.
But I'm not too sure.
Go ahead. Mo want to ask you a question, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Mo.
Yeah, on that point, like, so his whole argument wasn't, and I couldn't follow this from the debate, right? Because I went back and watched it again. And I was like, okay, let me see if I missed what he was saying. So maybe you saw it and I didn't. His argument was that Israelites are bloodline descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, etc., but that Jews are the converts and whatnot. And so he was just arguing for the Israelite part, not even worrying about the Jewish part, because Vocab pushed him on the whole convert thing. I thought that part got muddy right there, because he was like, wait a minute, if you accept the Torah, you gotta accept converts and whatnot. And that's when it turned. That's when Zion explained that part. But did you did any of y'all see him give any receipts as to what made a Jew the convert and an Israelite the bloodline? Because I didn't see that part.
No, that's just what they believe. They all believe that, and even the white Khazars, we converted them, and all of this other stuff. What Russell Higgins talking about? Correct? You agree with Moore?
I think Moore just reporting. I'm not sure. I don't think that's more stance per se.
Yeah, I was just reporting what I saw, like, because I couldn't understand that part. But I definitely agree. Like, his argument was convoluted in the sense to where, he was definitely trying to play to the audience and play both sides to the middle of it, which I thought was interesting, because he came out with the Khazar thing was crazy to me. I was like, bro, you're spending way too much time on the Khazar thing, bro. That doesn't even make sense or whatnot in any way, shape, or form without giving receipts or whatnot. And then it got to the DNA part, and I was like, whoa, because I had to jump on it to clarify something with it, because he literally said that he descends from the descendants of Abraham, because Vocab try to understand like how he was a bloodline Israelite, because he never explained that part.
From the descendants. Oh boy.
Exactly. So he was like, wait a minute, we don't have the DNA of Abraham. It's like, but we have the DNA of Abraham's descendants. So I jumped on and said, okay, so what's your haplogroup, and what group of these descendants are you saying that you go back to? And he's like, well, I don't want to reveal my haplogroup here. You can go back to my channel, which if you do, it says he's E1B1A. But then he said the groups that he connected to were like the Lemba and the Yemenites. Like, if you look at my DNA test or whatnot, you can see how I connected the Lemba and the Yemenites. I'm like, bro, you're doing that with autosomal DNA, though. You're mixing and matching the arguments and whatnot. Even then, so if you're talking about the autosomal, like the Y DNA, so Vocab came with his case, or came with the Kohanim argument, right? With the Kohanim gene argument, and it seemed to go past, like, over Zion Lex's head. Like, he didn't understand the argument. Like, so he brought up DNA, but didn't seem to understand the concept of paternal lineage with it, and started trying to connect himself to Israelites with the autosomal, or Israelite populations with autosomal DNA, like he was the tail twins or whatnot, if that makes sense.
But so more, Zion has been around the community a long time. Zion has been so all these things that has come up before that he's at least been aware of or has seen. I was shocked, bro. I was like, whoa, did I just see that? Like, I was so underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed by two things. One, I was underwhelmed by what Zion had to say, and I was underwhelmed by Vocab's performance as well. I thought they both took L's in it, because like I thought one was overplaying to the audience that they were in front of in terms of being outside, like with Zion Lex, and I thought that the Vocab underplayed to it. I thought he could have cut a lot of that stuff off at the beginning, particularly with the DNA. Because Vocab he recognized at the very beginning that there is an ethnic stock of Israel that still exists today, but he was making an ecclesiastical argument, right? So when he talked talks about an ethnic stock, he meant that ethnic claim based upon the Kohanim gene or whatnot, right? And I thought he did a horrible job of explaining that to people in the audience who have never heard that argument before. He was like assuming that you knew what he taught it whatnot, right? I thought he gave a very lazy presentation in that regard. And if had he done it better, he could have got into the DNA way harder with Zion. And I'll say it right here, right now. Vocab has a better command of the DNA than what Zion did. He just didn't, for whatever reason, he wasn't expounded on.
So, in terms of the question of for the debate,
Mm-hmm.
how did you understand the debate from the title?
Who are the Israelites of the Bible today?
And if you were to debate that, what methodology would you use?
I would do historical and biblical, right? Like even with the part that Vocab recognized where he said there's an ethnic stock of Israel, and then he talked about the ecclesial thing. You got to explain both. You can't just say that there's this ethnic group, but to hell with them. I'm going to talk about the ecclesiastical thing, because you can't have the ecclesiastical group without that ethnic group. They're part of the whole.
And so with the ethnic claim, the historical claim,
mm-hmm.
How far back would you go? Would you go to the Hyksos and that, or
I would because
that's how Zion Lex go all the way back to the 5th century BCE.
Yeah, that was wild. He was trying to do a little bit of lookership and a little bit of his whole presentation was curtailed for a side netter crowd, right? He couldn't take that presentation on the road and have it working for him, because people would have a lot of questions like, you need to fill this in, you need to fill that in. Like you're saying, he started with the Hyksos and whatnot, and then his main goal was to try to show that the Jews.
I think he wanted to go to a time prior to prior to them being on the scene.
100%. But like you're saying, where does the Talmud come from? Where does this come from? Where does that come from? Et cetera, whatnot. And those are deeper questions that he'll answer, whatnot. But he wasn't trying to in that debate. He was trying to keep it at a certain level. And I was like, I thought he did a disservice to the people. He could have went way deeper, particularly with the West African part. He went so hard on North Africa. I was like, bro, there's a lot of information on West Africa. He put a little bit up, but not much. And I was like, okay. When Vocab made the claims, like, I don't believe that the West Africans have the paper trail like the other Jews have. Zion Lex let that go. Like, I was like, bro, that should have been the other half of your present. Like, if you're trying to prove, for instance, that there are an ethnic stock of Israelites and African Americans can connect to them, okay, then walk that one out. Walk that one out from Egypt all the way to America for me, right? But don't just say that the Jews went into Africa and therefore we all connect to this joint, and therefore the Khazars are fake and whatnot. That was a horrible argument as far as I'm concerned.
So in the debate, I think Zion Lex didn't press too hard on it, but with the Samaritans, for an Israelite to dismiss the Samaritans, would that hurt their case as well? Being a Samaritan all mixed group and they didn't have records?
1,000,000%, yes, it would.
And they didn't keep the same practices as the Southern Kingdom.
I hear the argument that Zion was making, right? And somebody jumped on and actually said that they believed in a couple different groups, etc., whatnot. And genetically, this is exactly what you see. So this is why, when I went to the Vocab channel, I was using the Samaritan, the Kohanim, to actually go against his concept of what the Kohanim gene does or whatnot. And he was able to somewhat recognize, oh wow, okay. So for those who don't know, the Samaritan Kohanim are all 100% YAP positive. They're E1B1B. However, and they make up 17% of the population of Samaritan men or whatnot. 83% are haplogroup J, right? But they're not the Kohanim, so they're two different groups or whatnot, right? And so with the Kohanim, they go back to the Assyrian captivity, et cetera, whatnot. And so when I heard Zion Lex, when he was saying I connect to certain populations, he was like, but they can't be, fam. I was how are you connecting yourself to the Levant family? I need to understand that, because they're the only YAP positive argument that you can make right now, trying to connect yourself to a Kohanim group or a Levitical group, etc., whatnot, right? And so I was shocked at the argument. I was like, okay, you just cut off whatever genetic argument you was about to make. You just you cut your nose to spite your face. I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. And if he's holding to, if I'm mistaken, if he's holding to also, for instance, Zion Lex holds the rabbis to authority.
Mm-hmm.
How much of the rabbis or the Talmud or any of that did that come into the debate, or was it just more about morphology?
So for in the debate, I don't think it would have mattered because like so the threshold that vocab said he would have accepted was seeing a Torah scroll. He was like, if you don't got a Torah scroll in your community, I can't consider you Jewish like the rest of them, right? Which I thought was interesting, and which was another reason I would have gone into that if I was Zion Lex about West Africa. There's a lot of stuff you can pull out to kill all that in West Africa. There's sources for that. But at the same point in time, like, so I want to say this, like, so vocab, people need to hear this part. Vocab's argument applies to the Old and the New Testament. So this is what I didn't understand about what Zion Lex did, because vocab's argument is the true Israel is the one that accepts the Messiah, right? That's the same concept even in the Old Testament. Not everybody's getting in, right? It's the ones there's a whole Davidic messenger, there's a whole messianic figure in the Old Testament. I was going over this in my channel via Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, etc. Right? And the righteous remnant of Israel still got to get in line with him, right? So it's still the same concept. You're not the righteous remnant unless you're rocking with the Messiah. That argument is solid, Old Testament and New.
Yeah, and then we even go into the law, Deuteronomy 18, the prophet that comes to follow him. If you don't, you'll be cut off from the people.
Facts. Like that. I was hoping vocab would have came with that argument versus just staying as ecclesiastic as he did in the first round, because he lost everybody preaching the way he did. Like, so everyone understands, like, okay, you believe the church is Israel now, but you're going up against an old, like somebody who was a so-called, like, in the Orthodox Judaism kind of a concept, or like came from with a lot of those perspectives and whatnot. I was hoping he was going to camp out in the Old Testament and make them same arguments and then bring them to the New, right? But I think that would have been more edifying for the people watching and whatnot. But unfortunately for vocab and his eschatology, he's a progressive covenantalist. He doesn't see much use for that. He's like, well, it's kind of been overwritten by the New Testament, so we just stick with this.
Is that tail?
Read the screen.
Orthodox is a Muslim, but teaching the Bible. Okay, you got an issue with that? So
I don't think when it comes to I don't think Talmud plays a role in Israel. Maybe because Elder Green, Jewish, and Toby, or Professor Covey, so a few people around here, but I don't think in general on most of these other channels that Talmud even is an issue. No, I think most Israelites that we know that been on here before, that got channels and all of that, they anti-Talmud.
No, but it's two things with that, right? Well, to Moore's point, I think vocab in the debate should have showed the progression about the standard of being Israel is not just ethnic, but also the belief, right? But then showing too with the Messiah coming, that is the standard to show who's Israel. There's always a standard from Ezra to the wilderness. There's a standard where people just cut off, and then said, you're not part of the assembly.
Facts.
So that's one thing. But then the fact that Zion holds to rabbinic authority, how is he using morphology to say who Israel is today? Within his framework, though, he would use the rabbis. But
then he came up with that convoluted argument that with no sources of, well, no, the bloodline Israelites or the bloodline are Israelites and the converts are Jews and whatnot. So he's trying to accept both and reject one at the same time. Yeah, and I'm like, how do you do that, bro? Come on.
Because the whole sample, there are I always said some, not all, but there's evidence to where for Jewish plantations they would convert their slaves to Judaism.
Mm-hmm. That's facts.
So and then some of them will go to places from the islands to the mainland. Mm-hmm. Savannah has a huge Jewish community, and I speculate maybe some of those slaves there were from the islands. They were converts.
Yeah, and in fact, when he shows the commandment keepers and all them, there's a lot of Caribbean Jews that are in them kind of groups or whatnot at the time period, and a lot of them are going back to the groups that you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's where it just seems like if you're going to talk about so-called blacks being Israel, mm-hmm. you would have to include converts as well.
Yes, 100%. And here's the reality of it, fam. If you're rejecting converts, I hate to break it to you, like if you're trying to make this like a majority of African American claim, fam, you're not gonna be able to apply any of that in any way, shape, or form unless you accept converts. That just is what it is, fam. And that's why the DNA convert, like that's why I went on to jump to that DNA question with him, because he's, you connect to the descendants of descendants. What group are you talking about? because that group would have had, like, so when, the moment he said the Lemba and the Yemenites, I'm like, okay, you're talking about groups that are not West African. So if in order for you to talk about you connect to the Igbo and all, I'm like, somebody had to come through and convert somebody somewhere. That's the story you're skipping over. We got to explain that part. That's the part that's the part that a lot of people who have like the one Westish type doctrines or the pro-black or the majority black Judaism arguments and whatnot, they skip over that part. They like to muddy that water. Oh, the Ashkenazi Jew is a fake convert, but I'm like, there's no way you get to West African Jewry being a big population without conversion. It's not possible.
And I think you read that source a while back. You have, was it Matthews or one of them, the commandment keeper that actually goes to like Zimbabwe. In there, so there's a lot of history of interconnection.
Yes,
and so that's where now I see y'all mentioned bloodline with faith, but the bloodline is mixed with faith because you have folks who are cut off. And who bloodline? The tribe of Dan is cut off. What do we do then?
this is where, like, even in the Old Testament, there's the concept of like the people being gathered, like the people coming in the land and dwelling in the land. They can't come in unless they're circumcised in the flesh and the heart. That circumcision of the heart concept is exactly what vocab was focusing on, right? And so it seems like Zion was just focusing on the circumcision of the flesh. So he's losing the argument in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Like Zion 100% lost the argument, but he 100% won the presentation. Right? The arguments were crazy, man. Crazy. Like I was shocked that vocab didn't pounce on a lot of that stuff. It seemed like he was ready. Like a lot of people kept saying, like, it seems like he can only debate a one West Israelite, and like being that Zion Lex isn't quite one Westish, it was still giving him problems.
No, but the whole I hear you around here. That's saying who's a true Muslim, but the whole standpoint. This is going with the progression of the text. Mm-hmm. Ishmael is a bloodline descendant of Abraham, but he's cut off from the promise. Esau is a bloodline descendant of Isaac and Abraham, but he's cut off from the promise. You have Lot, who's has the same blood as Abraham, but he's not including the promise like that. It's those who are circumcised and also those who are of a particular line.
I want Fervent Charity to answer that right there. You heard what he said. Everybody them three people he just mentioned, Fervent Charity, their bloodline. Explain that, Fervent Charity. Fair use.
But the Tanakh says something different. It says that Jesus is resting in urine for claiming to be God as well. And I want to know how he's connecting the lineage to Jesus.
You mean the Talmud? You said the Tanakh. You mean the Talmud, right? And you mean semen and excrement, because it doesn't say urine. You mean semen and excrement, right?
Well, Judah shot him out the sky with his semen in that book, and in the told it that Yeshua, yes, he fought. So Onkelos, the Egyptian, says that he's resting in urine, semen, and excrete. So urine as well. But go ahead, brother. Brothers, I'm whoever want to answer first, I'm gonna just get out of here and listen.
All right. Since you asked and directed towards me first, I have no problem answering first. And I'll simply say that the sources that I showed documented in part what lineages among the Israelites came. For instance, the Ethiopian Jews, Beta Israel, are considered to be from the tribe of Dan. Eldad the Danite pointed out that you also had tribes of Naphtali, Gad, and Issachar. To validate and add a stamp of authentication on that point, even the Vilna Gaon's letter to the 10 lost tribes in West Africa, as well as Nubia, was directed to tribes of Gad, Naphtali, Issachar, and Asher. I don't know exactly what tribe I'm from among the Israelites. There are tribes that Israelites say that they know that they are from. I don't know for a fact what tribe I'm from. What I do know is that I'm an Israelite, because history shows that the peoples in West Africa at the time of the transatlantic slave trade, not all of them, many of them were historical Israelites. You see that not just in their culture, but you also see that in history and what is documented. So it's important to point out that a person coming on a platform like this or any platform claiming to have all the answers and knowing everything, that's your marker that that person is a charlatan, they're possibly lying. So I'm going to be forthright and tell you, I don't know exactly what tribe I am, but I do know that history shows that there were several Israelites in West Africa during the transatlantic slave trade, even to the extent that we have the account of Oluda Equiano, which documents an Igbo who was also an Israelite. Now, I can get a little deeper and tell you that my parents are from both Guyana in South America and Jamaica. And we know for a fact a large portion of the Igbo tribe went to South America, namely Guyana and Suriname, as well as Jamaica. That's where both of my parents are from. So I know for a fact that I have that lineage in my bloodline.
Well, in that case, oh boy, go ahead, Dunamis. Go ahead, y'all.
All right, vocab. You want to answer your question now? Or you want to?
So he does. How does he know for a fact? Because he knows Igbos were taken to this area, therefore he is Igbo. There's, my God, we had 20 plus people, different ethnic groups, like large ethnic groups, coming off them slave ships to them same areas. How do you know you don't descend from any one of them? So when you go back to his YouTube page and look at his video about DNA, he's connecting to the Igbo through autosomal DNA. So it's a completely convoluted argument. He didn't take an African ancestor test to find out, oh, okay, I descend from this Igbo, this group of Igbos over. No, he didn't do that. So it's a completely convoluted argument. And no, you don't know for a fact.
At least you're not like some of these other crazies out here saying everybody that came over.
No, I agree with that. And I got no issue with that. But at the same point in time, I can't slide on the fact that he's saying I know for a fact and he's reaching.
Go ahead, Dunamis. Here, you're on. I thought you had the other video lined up. Location. Well, let me see. You might step away for a minute.
I'm gonna repeat it.
No, that's fine. I think it's interesting, that he knows he's an Israelite, but he doesn't know a tribe. It's interesting, right? And then also you
can respond to that, just like he gonna respond to your question. But go ahead, if you want to respond, go ahead.
Yeah, think about how long you'd have to really know, right? If you count a generation.
Once you see what's in these two heavy-duty totes, you'll feel safer when the next disaster rolls around, because you'll know where you can get a survival food stockpile that's meant to last.
About 40 years. And then you go back to the days of, say, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, depending on where you landed, it's almost 100 generations. In the 90s, by most count, 90 generations. That means Zion Lex has to know that every single person in his paternal line, every single one was an Israelite who had an Israelite father. He's claiming that he knows that by holding up pictures of maps and arrows and accounts of people that he's not even related to.
We call those sources.
I want people to understand how his arguments don't actually match his claims. And so Zion Lex knows that he can't go back 99 generations and prove that every single one of his male ancestors is somebody who only had Israelite male ancestors, and all of those were only male ancestors. He has no way of knowing that. And that's why he does things like say, this is going to be academic, and then brings his own sound effects and do all these other tricks that are like parlor tricks. It's not something you would actually do if you were at a conference when you're having a real discussion about these things, because he says he's something that he's really not. And two counts: one, an Israelite, and second, a man who actually behaves in a scholastic way. He's just not what he says he is.
Just say you can't answer his question because you answered the question he asked me. You still didn't answer the question he asked you. That's sad. You don't even realize that, do you?
Yeah, no, I answered how I wanted to answer. If you remember during my cross-examinations, Alex, there was probably about five times you said, there's about five times you didn't answer direct questions from me. Remember that? Do you remember that, Zylex? You refused to answer from your own books.
Right, vocab. Let's answer your question, vocab.
He don't even remember what the question was on it.
To me, what else do you want to say? You're talking about.
Vocab, do you remember the question that he asked you?
This is crazy.
No, I don't remember.
Oh man, he ain't here. Remember, he asked you a question and Zion a question at the same time.
Well, I said something in the beginning. To me, that was enough. Remember, if you remember right in the beginning, I said something.
All right.
You guys don't remember that? Right when he said something, I answered immediately.
Okay. Let me go to the cosmic.
Oh my God.
Zion, do you not remember right when he asked it? I answered him right, and before you answered, you don't remember that?
Man.
All right, yeah. Let's go. We going to cosmic Sankofa.
All right, light and love, peace and blessings, everybody. Brother Sinetta, thank you for allowing me on the show. Everybody, Brother Lex, the question is for you. What is your understanding of West Africans' relationship to like the modern day Samaritans and then the Mandaeans? Like the modern day Samaritans are said to have one of the oldest authentic Pentateuchs, which aligns with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the Mandaeans are said to be a group that survived Roman persecution in the Arabian Peninsula. And then when you look at them phenotypically, you know, none of their traits line up with West African traits. So what would be the West African connection to those groups of people?
It's somewhat of a good question, but the heart of the question will take understanding what the Bible has to say. The Samaritans are not an Israelite group. The Bible lets you know that emphatically, and Samaritans do not tell you that they are traced from biblical bloodline Israelites. So if you open up the book of 2 Kings, it'll tell you that in the Assyrian exile and captivity, when the Assyrians conquered the northern tribes, they exiled the Israelites, the 10 lost tribes, and put them in parts of their kingdom. And they took people from their kingdom who were non-Israelites and placed them in the land. Those people became to be known as Samaritans. The Samaritans, as the Bible tells you, did not keep or hold to the laws of the Torah. So much so that the Bible says that they were chased out by wild animals until they had to learn the culture and the laws of the land. And it says that they still kept the laws of the land, but it was not in their heart to do it because they were not the people. And so by the time of Jesus, you encounter a concept known as the Good Samaritan. If you take a step back, you ask yourself a question. Why would Jesus be calling this man, this one man, the Good Samaritan? Because historically and culturally, they were not regarded as having morals and ethics.
So where did the Jews hated to say, Christianity don't teach that. The Jews hated to Samaritan because they put other people in the land and they mixed with those people. How did they even have a Samaritan Pentateuch? The woman in John 4 that Jesus was talking to, she said, your father said in this mountain, but our father said in this mountain we shall. So they were worshiping in some sense, but they were barred from Jerusalem. So they made their own mountain up. They made their own Pentateuch up. So they were worshipers of Moses. They were worshipers of the God of Israel in some way. But they was half bloodline and the Jews hated them because what happened and the other ones end up mixing. That's the history that I know. There's another history that I'm missing, y'all.
So when he encounters this man that he's calling the Good Samaritan, he's contrasting him against the majority of Samaritans, which were wicked and held to wicked practices, albeit still following the Torah out of fear, just as the Bible documents. So there should be no DNA or physical connection to the Samaritans and the West African diasporan Jews, because even the Bible tells you that the Samaritans were not originally Jews.
Why did the lady go say, come see a man? Is this not the Messiah? Is this not the Messiah? And I have to remember the lady in the well in John 4, and then they ran and they came back to Jesus, and many of the Samaritans believed on him. Is that not? Hold on, I got to shut this down.
Bring real quick.
Go ahead. Say what you.
Why is Zion Lex talking about the beliefs of the Samaritans? Why is he just focused on bloodline? Why does belief matter? Unless there's a clear understanding of Israel and their beliefs are taking their account as well.
Wait, go ahead. Go ahead for a minute.
No, because that's a whole sample with the Samaritans. The Samaritans hold to a different Old Testament. The Samaritans say that the Messiah didn't come from the tribe of Joseph. The Samaritans only hold to the Pentateuch for 5 books. So why does their belief matter if it's just about bloodline and showing and proving? Because then from the whole standpoint with the whole debate, for a lot of so-called blacks, they have a different belief system. They can't show and prove with documents, so it raises questions. And then when Jesus comes on the scene as the Messiah, if you reject him, won't you be kicked out of the assembly and not considered part of Israel? So that going to vocab saying that Jesus ultimately is the standard to say who's Israel and who's not. That you can be bloodline and still be kicked out.